Attorney Topacio, there is this criticism of the complaints that you filed before the Office of the Ombudsman that this is fantasy and fiction. That's according to House Deputy Majority Leader Paulo Ortega. Your reaction to that, Attorney Topacio?
Well, Carmina, the insertions are far from being fantasy and fiction because we have copies of the bills as approved by the bicameral committee and by both chambers of Congress, and they do contain entries that have zero amounts. And then later on, when it was transmitted to the president, meaning the General Appropriations Act, then all of those blanks became filled up. So that is not a fantasy. Maybe the fantasy lies in the fact in the amounts of the figures which they filled the blanks with.
They're also insisting that there were no unlawful insertions in the government spending bill. Your thoughts?
Actually, we could talk about the whole thing until we're blue in the face, but I would prefer that the answers come in the form of a counter affidavit filed before the Ombudsman. That is where we should debate the issue. Of course, they will deny everything, so we will just let the law take its due course and let the Ombudsman determine who is right and who is wrong in this instance.
I'm talking to you not as a lawyer of the complainants, but actually as one of the complainants, Attorney Topacio. What to you was the most compelling information that you received that left you no choice but to file these complaints before the Office of the Ombudsman, Attorney Topacio?
For one, this is an act that to me is unprecedented in legislative history. There were insertions before, Ms. Carmina, but usually these insertions were piecemeal, and these insertions carried a definite form that were inserted after the approval of both chambers. In this case, the approved act contained blanks, and right before they were transmitted to the palace as an enrolled bill, that's where the insertions came from, and they were wholesale, and the amount is staggering to the human mind, 241 billion pesos. So that is one. The second is the evidence leave no doubt that there were indeed insertions. We have copies of the bill as approved by the bicameral committee and copy furnished members of both the House and the Senate. And these contain blanks which are at variance with the version finally signed by the President. So to me, all these matters evince a blatant desire to tamper with the legislative process in appropriating funds in order to do something with these funds that are not authorized by law, and which amount to undue delegation of legislative power, which is not only illegal, but unconstitutional as well.
Where do you think, if it is true what you're saying, Attorney Topacio, where do you think they're going to use the funds?
I have no idea. I do not want to surmise, because our complaint is limited to the possible criminal liability of those who perpetrated such a fraud upon the Filipino people. Our end game here is to see to it that those who made these deeds shall be held to account before the bar of criminal justice and the appropriate penalties meted to them. This is our concern. With respect to the use of the funds, I think there is already another case before the Supreme Court that challenges the constitutionality of the General Appropriations Act instead. So I will leave myself to comments regarding this particular case that we have filed before the Office of the Ombudsman.
All right, fair enough, Attorney Topacio. Now, when you talk to the Senate President, when you talk to those who worked in Congress on this budget for 2025, they're all saying one thing. They're all saying that the budget went through a rigorous process involving almost everyone, right? So if that is the case, What is the connection? What ties the Speaker and the others that are mentioned in the complaints? What ties them to what you allege were unconstitutional acts? Why them and not, and why not by, the reasoning of the Senate President and leaders at Congress that this actually went through a rigorous process? So why zero in on just a few? Go ahead.
Okay, for one, the GAA, as all other budgets, are appropriation bills, meaning all appropriation bills must emanate from the House, and therefore the chamber of origin is the House, and it is returned there after it is approved by the bicameral committee. Any insertions must have been made at the House by staffers which could not have done it on their own. They could not have been acting on their own. Considering the magnitude of the sums involved, they must have been acting on the instructions or upon the instructions of their superiors. And in this case, the House leadership is composed of the people that we have named in our complaint as those who have control over the appropriations, the budget, and who have custody of the documents after it is returned from the bicameral committee and approved by both houses.
How do you then prove that? You're saying that the staffers must have, gotten the orders from their superiors, from their principals. And if it is true that that's actually what happened, how do you then prove that, Attorney Topacio?
Circumstantial evidence is, of course, admissible in any criminal case. Of course, we will have no video of them ordering their staff to do it. We will have no videos of the actual staffers doing it. We have no written instructions, of course, owing to the sub rosa nature of what we have alleged. But when you take the totality of circumstances, it could not have been otherwise unless the staffers will admit that they did it on their own. Well, that is another matter. But under the doctrine of command responsibility, under the doctrine of circumstantial evidence, it leaves us no choice but to strongly believe that these insertions were made at the behest and upon the instructions of those whom we have named in our complaint affidavit.
Finally, before we let you go, Attorney Topacio, all this that you said, your critics at the House of Representatives are saying only one thing, that you did this sort of as a diversionary tactic from the looming impeachment complaint against the Vice President. Your thoughts on that?
Well, the timing was made after the impeachment because this has been a long process. We have started our research, the gathering of evidence, which was not easy because up to now, our request for a copy, a certified true copy of the enrolled bill has not been addressed by the House. So we had to research this, we had to study it, gather evidence, get complainants. And so the timing was done right after the filing or the transmission of the impeachment complaint to the Senate, effectively impeaching the Vice President, because this was the time that we finished everything. It was a long, thought-out process, and unlike some of the members of the Quadcom, we cannot act without thinking.
All right. Our crew was there during the filing of the complaints before the Office of the Ombudsman, Attorney Topacio. Who made the first move? Who rounded up all those that you were with this morning and said, okay, this is going to be the move, this is going to be how we're going to do it, and let's all work on this and see each other at the Office of the Ombudsman come February 10 morning? Who made the first move?
As I said, it is a long process. It was the Speaker, the former Speaker, I should say, who tried to get people on board. And I am here because as a member of Congress, as still an incumbent member of Congress, he has access to some of the documents, and not only that, he's very familiar with the process as to how a bill, especially something as complicated as a General Appropriations Act, becomes law. So he was the one who first noticed some anomalies, including, but of course not limited to him, including Senator Ivy Marcos, Congressman Ungab, and they went to some people who were willing to get on board. The Citizens Crime Watch, which I represent in this suit, has been existing since 1992. We have filed numerous cases across all administrations against people, against public officials who we think have erred and broken law. We have filed a case against Congressman Garin when she was secretary for Deng Baksha. We have filed the SAP 44 case against former President Aquino. We even filed a case against Secretary Ramon Lopez during the Duterte administration. So this is our advocacy in the Citizens Crime Watch since 1992. And we are non-partisan. We will file a case against anyone. We've even filed a case against Commissioner Guanzon for graft. All of these cases are now pending before the proper courts, either the Sandigan Bayan or the RTC of Bulacan, as the case may be. And this is our advocacy. So talagang pakialamero kami, so to speak. Whenever we see that there may be an injustice, whenever there may be graft, whenever there may be an affront to public funds, the Citizens Crime Watch is quick to step in and try to carry the brunt of the fight for the Filipino people.
Tell me something, Attorney Topacio. The former Speaker, Pantaleon Alvarez, he is, as you said, a sitting congressman in the 19th Congress. When did he first know that there were irregularities? Did he know of this belatedly? Or was he there participating as well throughout the budget process? And if so, why didn't he speak out then?
I would not be qualified or competent to speak on behalf of Congressman Alvarez. But what I know is that 2 weeks ago, I was contacted by some people, mutual friends, and they asked if the Citizens Crime Watch were willing to be one of those in the vanguard of this legal battle. And I told them we should look at the complaint first and the evidence and evaluate to see whether we are willing to lend our name to this. They emailed us a copy of the complaint affidavit. We suggested some changes and we said, okay, we are on board. So that is how it all began. As to how Speaker Alvarez came to the knowledge of these anomalies, I would not know. I'm sorry.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it at that. We've run out of time. Attorney Ferdinand Topacio there joining us this noon. Thanks again for taking our call.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And thank you for the opportunity, and God bless.